Now we're here. The opening act has arrived of a climate catastrophe.
Climate catastrophe.
Climate catastrophe.
Climate catastrophe.
No doubt, this is going to be a summer of climate catastrophe.
Irreversible climate catastrophe.
Climate change is real. Climate catastrophism is demonstrably false.
President Joe Biden has a chance to do something big about climate change before it's too late. But too late is kind of soon. Here's why. Imagine Earth's being attacked by a gang of, let's say, aliens. Actually, alien terrorists, wearing horned helmets in interstellar Viking ships. And they've got a secret weapon that can plunge Manhattan and Miami into the ocean. They can unleash heat waves that kill thousands, send flaming tornadoes scorching down the West Coast, spark massive migrations across America's southern border as people flee blazing temperatures, and make huge parts of the world literally unsuitable for human life. But you have a plan to stop them. Yes, you have a plan to save planet Earth. Only you can prevent alien terrorist Viking-induced firenadoes. You rush down to the US Senate and tell them your plan. You get there, and they yawn and debate, and the end result is that about half of them give your plan the old thumbs down. And they're like, nah, sounds expensive. Well, that is literally the scene in DC right now. If you just swap out alien terrorists with climate change. Never mind that your plan to literally save Earth costs about as much as Trump's tax cuts. A massively underrated story in Washington, D.C. this summer is that one of America's last decent, realistic windows of opportunity to do something meaningful about climate change is closing, and fast. And seizing this opportunity means everything has to go absolutely perfectly, in Washington, D.C. of all places. Now, if you failed to notice this drama, it's not your fault. In part because when President Biden wants to talk about his climate plan, he doesn't use a controversial, climate denialist baiting word like climate. Instead, he says jobs. And he's not exactly subtle about that rebrand.
For me, when I think climate change, I think jobs.
His big climate initiative is literally called the American Jobs Plan. And there's a good reason for this. Jobs are supposed to be one of those things that every leader in Washington can agree is awesome. Like motherhood, or apple pie, or the really big one, golf. 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 It's one of those words that sounds really weird when you say it over and over again. Golf. 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 Seriously, golf. Why, dear God, all the golf?
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Golf. Biden proposed a national network of electric car charging stations so you could actually take your EV on a road trip. And he wanted US power plants to be 100% carbon-free by 2035, which makes sense as a combo. Convert our dirty engines to electricity, and then make sure the electricity comes from a green source. He proposed tax credits for renewables, phasing out fossil fuel subsidies, replacing diesel transit vehicles and electrifying at least 20% of America's yellow school bus fleet, and also capping abandoned oil and gas wells which have just been sitting there leaking methane. He wanted $35 billion for research into climate breakthrough technology like better batteries and carbon capture. Would all that solve global warming? Hell no. But it would be a serious first step. Yet, Biden's plan to actually try and stop the Martian invaders, climate change, failed to win GOP support. Instead, Republicans jumped into this conversation about the future viability of our species on this planet with a debate over the precise dictionary definition of the most boring word in the English language.
The president's definition of infrastructure is extraordinarily broad.
We have to agree on what the definition of infrastructure
Yes.
What constitutes infrastructure?
Care economy is infrastructure. Climate justice is infrastructure. Housing justice is infrastructure.
They're calling everything infrastructure.
It does seem like the definition of infrastructure changes.
Abolishing the suburbs is a major part of the Biden administration's infrastructure plan.
You could be forgiven for your confusion about what constitutes infrastructure and what does not constitute infrastructure.
As we all know, the punishment for using a broad definition of the word infrastructure is death by melting. Those opposed to fighting climate change have also argued that Democrats just hate hamburgers.
Speaking of stupid, there's a study coming out of the University of Michigan which says that to meet the Biden Green New Deal targets, America has to, get this, America has to stop eating meat, stop eating poultry, fish, seafood, eggs, dairy, and animal-based fats. Okay, you got that? No burgers on July 4th.
You'll never eat a hamburger again.
They want to take away your hamburgers. This is what Stalin dreamt about, but never achieved.
Okay, so one side wants the Earth not to incinerate itself, and the other side apparently wants delicious cheeseburgers. Can they make a deal?
And to answer your direct question, we have a deal.
They can! The Earth is saved. Meat is back on the menu.
None of us got what we wanted.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess compromise was always going to be a part of it. So how did they manage to land a bipartisan agreement on an infrastructure plan that tackles climate change? Easy. Ditch the climate change part and whittle the infrastructure down to what everyone can agree on. Bridges and roads. In fact, it puts a lot of money into dirty energy infrastructure, like airports for conventional jet fuel burning airplanes.
It sounds like to me that they have a package which is climate denial masquerading as bipartisanship.
Democrats don't have to go with just this super diluted compromise plan. They have a plan B. They're still going to try to get some climate stuff through the Senate with a special, super sneaky move called reconciliation. But that only works if all 50 Senate Democrats agree. And they have a problem, whose name is Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Manchin hails from West Virginia, where a lot of jobs still depend on coal. This dude once literally shot a bullet through Barack Obama's climate plan. Seriously, roll the tape.
I'll take dead aim at the cap and trade bill, because it's bad for West Virginia.
He also owns a houseboat, so rising sea levels are #your problem. Of course, we all know the real way to kill an idea you don't like isn't to shoot it with a gun. It's to try to get bipartisan support. Heyo! And, probably totally unrelated, but Manchin's office allegedly has a weekly running chat going with ExxonMobil. Weekly. Don't take it from me. Take it from Exxon's Senior Director of Federal Relations in DC, who was recently tricked by Greenpeace into doing an interview with fake job recruiters, during which he boasted about his intimacy with the senator in a way we don't normally get to hear in public.
Joe Manchin, I talk to his office every week. He is the kingmaker, and he's not shy about sort of staking his claim early and completely changing the debate.
He went on to say he lobbied key senators to remove or diminish the climate change parts of the plan. The company said it was shocked.
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
And condemned the remarks, particularly about meetings with elected officials, and said they in no way represent the company's position on a variety of issues, including climate policy. Either way, ExxonMobil's corporate PAC and those affiliated with other energy companies have together given Manchin tens of thousands of dollars over the years. So, just to recap here, Manchin is Mr. I shoot climate solutions while my office yucks it up with ExxonMobil weekly, and now we're all depending on this guy to stop climate change. Now, if you combine the bipartisan deal with the huge reconciliation package, you might just end up with a serious climate plan. But the margins in Congress are razor thin. If you're sitting there thinking this sucks, you are right. Because believe it or not, this was supposed to be the easy part. Biden's plan is popular. And right now, Democrats control the White House and both chambers of Congress, which last happened 10 years ago, will probably end after next year's midterms, and could easily not come again for another decade. And we don't have another decade. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says we've got until 2030 to try and stay out of the real danger zone, which is where we end up when temperatures rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius. At that point, the IPCC says we'd lose only 70 to 90% of all coral reefs. Up 2 degrees, We lose more than 99%. Do you like coral reefs? I like coral reefs. I would like to keep them. According to the UN, we're already on track for a rise of more than 3 degrees by the end of this century. Earth's total average surface temperature has already risen about 1 degree since 1900. In some places, it's already above 2 degrees. Don't be fooled by the small numbers here. When you're talking about a global average, it has huge consequences. Some of them are already here. You probably noticed this summer brought yet another historic mega heat wave, which killed hundreds of people on the West Coast, melted streetcar cables in Portland, and unleashed a fucking fire tornado.
Also, new video overnight shows a fire tornado. Wow.
Wow is damn right. Nothing says big extinction energy like fire-nado, and the heat is just one side of it. Warmer oceans mean bigger storms with more rain, and that too has horrific consequences. In Western Germany, flooding from torrential rain killed more than 165 people, with water rising to levels that a German meteorologist said hadn't been seen in more than 500 years. To meet the IPCC targets, we need to cut CO2 emissions by about 45% by 2030, and all the way down to net zero by 2050. And that is scientifically and economically possible. But what we're learning is that during this all-important next decade, the process of politicians agreeing and implementing a plan in time is going to be a white-knuckle ride. A lot of environmentalists and economists say that if we really want to get it done, one of the most effective tools we could roll out would be a carbon tax, which would put a fee on all the carbon we burn and slash emissions. Even ExxonMobil, in public, supports that idea, expressing a firm commitment that carbon pricing is important to addressing climate change, which is a really heartwarming thing to hear an oil company say. But here's how that lobbyist put it when he thought we weren't listening.
Carbon tax isn't going to happen. And the bottom line is it's going to take political courage, political will, in order to get something done. And that doesn't exist in politics. It just doesn't.
Well put, Mr. Big Oil lobbying guy. Wonder how they're going to golf through fire-nados.